Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome to Casual Friday. I am Shawn for W. Glad to be joining you today, and I'm joined, as I am every single week, by my partners in crime, XJ and Mensa. And today's episode, you're about to hear us, along with GMAC, throw feces at each other for an hour and 15 minutes because we are discussing the complicated legacy of Carmelo Anthony. And let's just say there was a bit of a divide. GMAC thinks the division is along one aspect. I think it's on the other aspect. But you're hearing this. We're actually recording this after the episode, so I'm going to throw it to each of them to describe how they thought the episode went and what you should expect to hear over the next hour 15, hour 20. I'll start with Mensa.
I think that went great. I think that was awesome. It was cathartic. I don't know. I had a long week at work. It was nice to come on here and be angry for a little while. I think at the end, we agree on the same things. It's just, we look at it, I guess, appreciate the facts differently is all it is. But I thought it was great. I had a great time. And I got a little Milan agenda off, but no, it wasn't the RJ Barrett agenda. So yeah, I think it went great for sure.
Yeah, I think everyone's going to love the conversation. It was definitely a little heated, but it definitely enjoyable, super fun to listen to. Everyone's perspective here. I mean, my perspective is probably always going to come from like the player, like data driven side, but also got into a little bit of the historical context. And it's just really great to hear everyone's perspective and be able to like just disagree about it like very openly. And I think that people will enjoy it.
And we still disagree about it because y'all are wildin', Melo forever. Let's get to the episode. So go ahead and start.
I mean,
go ahead, Mr. You're the one that wanted to be upset about.
Wait, actually, I need to do the intro.
You pitched this.
No, I didn't want to be
this as my take on Melo is different than everybody's.
You did say that. Shawn.
I noticed in your tribute, because I made the social thing for Instagram, that your tribute to Melo was like, thank you for Syracuse and nothing else professional related. And you wore the
it's not unintentional. It's not unintentional.
So why don't you start?
I mean, look, I said, all right. I was watching John's post game.
Talking to your mic.
I was getting my phone.
Sorry. Okay.
I was getting this. I'm plugging my phone in. Keep all this in.
Fair enough. It's all staying in. Don't worry.
All right. During John's emergency live stream, I left a super chat that said that like his legacy is complicated as anyone's is for a New York athlete. And I'm glad John agreed with me. And John and I, we have been on the other side of the slow down Spartacus, train when it comes to Melo. Like, and the funny thing is, while watching it, all these thoughts started popping in my head. And I was like, man, I would love to share these thoughts somewhere. And I was like, wait a minute, I'm actually on a podcast once a week. So I started taking notes. I started taking notes.
Then you went to the group chat and said, like, Mr. Claudio. Well, then you sent in a super chat and said, hint, hint. I was like, all right, I'll put on my fire equipment because I want the smoke. Let's do it.
I donated $2 for a production meeting.
Yes.
Quite literally.
Yes.
And I just wrote down, for those who are watching, for those who are not watching, I wrote down notes. And I was like, every time John would say something, I would trigger something, and I just started like writing down like, All
right. Well, I will. So we'll make sure we bounce around at the very beginning. Go ahead.
All right.
Make sure we bounce around. But
here's where we'll start.
Shawn, the floor is yours.
Okay. Here's where we'll start. You said in response to my super chat, and I think it was a very astute observation, that there are two types of Knicks fans. There's the Yankee Knicks fan and the Mets Knicks fan. And the Yankee Knicks fan, like me and XJ, we bring different levels of expectations than you and Mensa, who are Mets Knicks fans. So while that makes sense, there's also another divide when it comes to Knicks fans. There's Knicks fans of the 20th century and Knicks fans of the 21st century. And I am a Knicks fan of the 20th century, not obviously not the majority, but like I started watching this team in 92. So yes, while that team never won a title, my level of expectation for the Knicks is more often than not, you should make the playoffs by rolling out of bed. And my memories of those 90s Knicks teams, my top 10 moments of the 90s Knicks teams, I think one of them is a regular season moment. Maybe two. And the one for me is when we beat the 96 Bulls 104-72 on a Sunday afternoon on NBC at Madison Square Garden. So when we start the emergency live stream and the highlight
is a regular season moment,
is a regular season game on Easter, everyone's like, "Oh my God, remember where you were for the Eastern game?" I'm like, what are we doing here? Can we, yes, I understand we are the Knicks, but then again, I'm a 90s Knicks fan. We are the Knicks. So while I have all the respect in the world for Carmelo Anthony as someone who chose New York when a lot of people didn't want to smoke, I'm not going to say any names, and he gave his all, and he wanted to be here, and he was third in MVP, and he was part of making New York basketball relevant again. There is a deification of the Carmelo Anthony era from some, not all, some, that I push back on. And where I think we're going to end up throwing food at each other is when the discussion around, well, Melo didn't win, and the pushback is, well, the team he had wasn't the best. Like you said, who should he pass it to? And my pushback, and which is what I get food thrown at me, is I think the level, the amount of culpability on Carmelo Anthony in that inability to build a team is not 90% or 80%. Anyone says it's all his fault, that's just absurd. But that level of culpability seems to be ignored when discussing his career. As my son calls me on his iPad, he's right over there.
Yeah, he's mad at you too. He wants to point out how wrong you are as well.
I got more notes, but I'll stop there.
Mensa, do you hear what he said, right? Like no regular season memories. You know what that sounds like? Yeah.
What does that sound like?
Oh, so Met fans, you're so excited about Francisco Alvarez's pop or this random 5-game winning streak. Enjoy your World Series sometime in May, by the way. There's levels to this, as some arrogant Yankee fans like to say.
We have one such arrogant Yankee fan in our group chat, but that is
many such arrogant.
Many such, many such. Don't worry.
I am not one of them.
They shall remain nameless.
You admire them though,
but I do.
Go ahead, Mensa.
But I do want to So, what are we talking about? Are we talking about is this the should Carmelo Anthony's jersey be retired discussion, or is this like a referendum on his legacy? Because I'm not sure what we're talking about right now, because Carmelo Anthony to me is an American hero. What is that? Four Olympic gold medals? If I'm not mistaken, three Olympic gold medals, right? He was on the 2020 team, right? No, there was no 2020 Olympics, obviously. Bad on me.
There was. It was just in 2021.
It was in 2021.
Right. Yeah.
And he was like, I'm good.
Yeah.
He won a chip as a freshman at Syracuse, who has done squat since he's left. Done literally squat since he's left.
Wait. Define squat.
What have they won since Carmelo Anthony left? A couple Big East tournaments.
2 Final Fours, Shawn? Is that it?
3
Final Fours.
Actually, yes. So, and now we're going to, don't listen, because I spend so much time, whatever. Continue, Mensa.
Mm-hmm.
Came to the New York Knicks when literally nobody wanted to come to the New York Knicks. Put that jersey on, made us relevant. Everybody talks about the Easter moment and the bang against the Bulls and everything, but my personal favorite moment of Carmelo Anthony is when he scored 42 points and Jared Jeffries had an all-time sellout under the basket. Oh my goodness. I think it was Tony Douglas, Bill Walker, Jared Jeffries, Ronnie Turiaf. Like listen to those names. And Carmelo Anthony went into Boston and fought like hell. We didn't win that game, of course. Wait, no, we didn't win.
No, that was game 2.
Jared Jeffries sold us the hell out. Right.
Exactly. Yeah, it was a Jared Jeffries game.
Carmelo Anthony as a New York Knick absolutely deserves to be celebrated. Does he deserve to be celebrated on the level of a guy like Ewing or even Starks and Oakley? No, nobody's saying that, because there are levels to the way we should celebrate this guy. But Carmelo Anthony is our guy. And I feel like there's always been this like insufferability in our fan base where nobody's good enough. You know, like you come here and you're not good enough. And don't worry, because I got some smoke for some people who, never mind. We'll get to that when we get to that. But yeah, he wasn't perfect. So what? He was ours. Yeah, he wasn't LeBron James or Kevin Durant in an era when LeBron James and Kevin Durant were in their prime. So what? Whenever he went head to head with those guys, he gave them their all. This guy, Carmelo Anthony, that we had, who came here and played for 7 seasons for us, was sensational. The latter half of it was the latter half of it, and that's because, again, he chose to come to the Knicks when the Knicks were in their prime foolishness. We cannot hold too much again. Okay, so Carmelo Anthony.
Are you saying we can't blame Carmelo Anthony for deciding to join the prime fool?
I'm not saying that. I'm saying is, like, listen to this. We have more smoke for Carmelo Anthony. Like, he's the villain. You know who the real villain of that era is? Amari Stoudemire, who in a layup line decides to do a highlight dunk and has a back spasm, or the following season is so mad that heat culture is in his head that he punches a fire extinguisher and gets himself taken out of the series. That's the villain. If Amari Stoudemire didn't sell Carmelo Anthony out because of his emotions, we would have a different opinion on Carmelo Anthony today. He is a victim of circumstance. That is absolutely true. How much you want to level the victimization is up to you, but you cannot say that Carmelo Anthony came into a situation that he didn't breathe life into, and that everybody around him tried to suck the life out of. And I feel like we have to have that caveat when we're having the Carmelo Anthony discussion, because he, as a basketball player, no, he wasn't this life-changing savior. I don't think anybody expected him to be that, or if you did, you learned pretty quickly he wasn't going to be a life-changing savior, but he was a superstar, and he was our superstar. And I feel like just because he wasn't, and then all the narratives that were happening at the time, oh, Carmelo Anthony's not better than Blake Griffin. History says you're wrong. Or, oh, Carmelo Anthony's not better than Kevin Love. History disagrees with you too. All the narratives that we had against Carmelo Anthony, as Carmelo has what I want to say is he has lasted the test of time where other people have not. And we remember him for everybody that he wasn't better than in the moment. But when we look back at it, you sound stupid if you said that, oh, Blake Griffin had a better career than Carmelo Anthony, yada, 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 win shares, yada, 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 a whole bunch of nonsense. Like, let's be proud that this guy came to us when we were nobodies and started to get us back into the feeling of what it was like to be proud of your basketball team. Because for a while there, we couldn't be proud. And Melo brought pride back to New York.
Hell yeah. XJ.
I just want to clarify one thing, because this is very important. We're gaslighting Amari Stoudemire, saying he punched a fire extinguisher. He would never do such a thing. He punched the glass encasing the fire extinguisher. So that's an important point of clarification. So that's number one. And number two, I am starting to see this divide between the Yankees Knicks fans.
It's a Yankee Knicks fan and a Met Knicks fan. Yes.
Because everything that Mensa said, like, I agree with, but I wouldn't say it with such a sense of pride attached to it. It's like,
fair enough.
I agree with it.
Bro,
in theory.
I have to jump in real quick, because this has been my point for like a year now when discussing the difference between like the two different types of Knicks fans that exist. Like every out of town podcast that I've done, like obviously this year with the pregame pod, it's been different, but like when I've talked on other like radio hits, right, and they've been like, how do you have like so many teams there? And it's like, well, we're all Knicks fans, and that's what makes it so interesting, is that like when you're a Met, Jet, Knick fan, you appreciate good when it happens because you don't know how often it's going to happen. And when you're a Yankee Giant Knick fan, damn it, we need to win the thing of the whole every year. If we miss the playoffs, it's the disappointment. The mediocrity is not good enough. Good is not good enough. Very good is not good enough. 27 rings, gabagool, kiss the rings on us while you're at it. Okay, you're better off rooting for the Miami Heat as far as that's concerned. So I look at the divide and it's playing out perfectly right now. Continue, XJ.
No, I appreciate you jumping in to add that comment. It's very important commentary because it's totally consistent with how I'm viewing this, hearing the conversation so far. Because I agree with both Shawn and Mensa. I agreed with everything Mensa said, but I'm just like, Mensa's like swelling with pride when he says it. And I'm more like, yeah, that's true. Yeah, cool. Like, yeah.
My pride is in the fact that this guy came to a place that was dead. There were no plants in the garden. And he said, you know what? I don't care about that. The name on the front of the jersey matters a lot to me. Of course, the name on the back of the jersey and the paycheck he was getting mattered a lot.
I was going to say, it didn't matter enough that he could just come here in free agency. It mattered
so much context.
Let's talk about it.
We can talk about it. I'm just saying, just to put a pin in that. I want to say Carmelo, obviously, an excellent player. Obviously, we had as Knicks fans, an excellent player at the level that we had not had in many years prior and many years after. For sure, that's totally true. And, I think that people think like from the analytical perspective, you talk about his efficiency or he was, and I'm sure as the analytical voice, like people would expect me to talk about like that he was an inefficient player. Actually, through his prime, he was pretty efficient. He was like generally always in the upper half to quarter of the league in efficiency, despite taking literally 20 shots per game, like almost every season of his prime career. And a sort of a sketchy shot diet, but that demonstrated how good he was, how skilled he was, how good he was at his craft, right? Like as everyone would say about Melo. But the thing is, it's like, I see Melo as like someone who was able to like a craftsman who made like antique pianos or something. It's like, man, he was really good at that thing that's so hard and everybody can see like that's really difficult and he was amazing at it. But it's like, oh, okay, you have a antique piano now. Like, okay, that's nice. Like, what am I gonna do with that? I'm gonna display it in my house. Like, I don't know. Like, I can't hang this up. Like I don't know what to do with that with this antique piano. I need something like that has utility, like a championship. Like
actually, that's a tremendous point.
Like that is how I view it, and it's like, yeah, everyone agrees universally. Wow, this guy is an amazing craftsman, amazing, but like. We disagree on the value of the inherent to that craft. I think that's what we disagree on. And that just is supported by what you were just talking about, Andrew. So you can go from there, or we can segue into like the not caring enough about coming to New York to come in free agency. Either way, but I just wanted to add that point.
So the tough part for me, and I think it's really come to light with the retired number conversation, because we could go around and say like, would you retire his number? But like for me, would I want to see his number retired? Yes. If someone were to be like, what, you can't retire his number, it's only three playoff appearances and one playoff series win, and there's more losing than winning, I'd be like, yeah, you're probably right. Like, I'm not like sold on the fact that he needs to have his number retire and it's unimpeachable. I come from the Mets, where up until 2016, one player's number was retired that actually played for the team. It was Tom Seaver. The other two was a manager and Jackie Robinson. And only recently, because Piazza made the Hall of Fame, on the Wilpons way out, they were like, oh, by the way, Jerry Koosman's number retired. And now that we got a billionaire who grew up in the 80s, the entire 86 Mets are about to have their numbers retired. Is that going to change? And I thought, like, I apply that same logic to the Knicks way of things, because I recognize the guys that have their numbers retired outside of Ewing have won a title. It's why Bernard King, I think, if we're going to retire Melo's number, probably also needs to go up with Melo, that you got to have a number 30 up there as well as a number 7. My point, and I think this can now, I'm going to send it back to Shawn because he got this started. My point is that a lot of his shortcomings I lay at the feet of like the Knicks for not being able to build around him. And I appreciated him because I didn't, like, as a Knicks fan in the 2010 in the 2000s, I didn't get to watch a lot of like all-stars play for my team. A lot of Hall of Famers play for my team in their prime. Shout out Tracy McGrady. Like, I didn't get to watch a lot of like the guy like on prime time being on my team in prime time. It was always like, oh, well, let's put the Knicks on a national game because we know people will watch, and Mike Sweetney will lead the team in points that night. Like, I appreciated him for what it was, which is why I think his career, to Shawn, the way you started this, the complicated part of his career is it comps a lot with Mike Piazza, where he's a Hall of Famer. His best seasons are in a different uniform. The World Series is obviously a higher accomplishment than a second round exit, but there's one really great season in there. And then the rest, like, it's kind of meh. Like, after 2000, Mike Piazza, the Mets didn't make the playoffs. So I can't like point to a lot of team success for him. And I blame the Mets and their incompetent ownership for that. Does it sound familiar? So Shawn, I turn it back over to you.
So the pushback I give to the whole who do you have to pass it to thing is like, well, what if Nikola Jokic had that same mentality? But seem to him, neither here nor there.
So he's not. You got me. He's not Nikola Jokic.
No, what I'm saying is this is always like this idea of it's like, well, they stink, so I'm just gonna do me, and I'm like, but that's not even about that. That's but obviously it's Nikola Jokic, who's gonna be like a top 20 player of all time when it's said and done, right? For me, it goes back to, and I think I never believed Carmelo Anthony was the best player on the championship team. Never, ever. And I've believed that way before he became a Knick. So now when the guy who I don't think can be the best player on the championship team says, I'd like to play for you. However, I'd like you to buy something that you could get for free because of poor decisions that I made.
The I made, I agree with you on that. If he had just, so add context to what you're talking about.
Okay, now we get into story time. So there's two parts of the story. One, as most people know, Carmelo Anthony was scheduled to be a free agent in the summer of 2011. There is a lockout coming in 2011. Most likely at this point, people think that player salary is going to roll back. Carmelo Anthony's eligible as a 3-year, $65 million extension on the table. He doesn't know what that number is going to be. So he says to the Knicks, I'd like to play for you, but trade for me so I can get this money. And yes, that's in
play.
That's in play, right? And even though Carmelo Anthony, everyone and their mother knew that Carmelo Anthony didn't want to be in Denver and had one team he wanted to be traded to and was approaching free agency, somehow we ended up again, listen, LeBron James is a billionaire. That doesn't mean he should buy a bottle of water for $45 because he could afford it. If the bottle of water is $5, he should pay $5. So he then, because he wanted to be in New York so much that he basically used his leverage to hold that franchise over a barrel so he can get his money. Now, one can say, well, I mean, how did he know when he signed his contract in 2006 that there will be a lockout in 2011? Guess what? LeBron James told him this in 2006.
Yeah.
What do I mean? Story time. LeBron James, Carmelo Anthony, Dwayne Wade, Chris Bosh, 4 of the top 5 players taken in the 2003 NBA draft. As many of you know, because you watch Knicks Film School or listen, and you are very smart people, your first contract is a 4-year contract. 4 years.
Yeah.
4, 5, 6. Yes, 4-year contract. Yeah, 4-year deal. So they all became restricted free agents in 2006. Approaching that summer, LeBron James, because LeBron James and Wade, they all get together and they're like, well, listen, we speaking to a lot of smart people, including our agent, and I'll get to who that is later, says, hey, the next CBA, there's probably going to be a lockout because of the revenue split was 57-43, and the owners want to pull it back. So here's what we should do. Let's, instead of signing the 5-year deal, well, 4 years with an option, let's sign a 4-year deal so we could all be free agents in 2010, and then we could all literally decide where we want to play, and we could all opt in and get our money before the lockout. LeBron was like, who's with me? Dwayne Wade, I'm with you. Chris Bosh, I'm with you. Carmelo Anthony, nah, B, give me all the money. So he takes the 5-year deal instead of the 4-year deal. And then fast forward to the summer of 2010. And what happened in summer of 2010, everybody? That's the decision. And Dwayne Wade and Chris Bosh and LeBron James, who are all free agents, say, let's all get together and play here. What about Melo? Oh, Melo decided to take the 5-year deal, and he was stuck. And because he didn't listen to, I'm not going to say his best friend, he didn't listen to his boy who told him that advice. And I'm not going to act like LeBron knew that, but I'm pretty sure he knew that from someone like his agent, who was his agent?
Leon Rose.
Does anyone know?
Leon Rose.
That would be one.
Leon Rose.
Mm-hmm.
Leon Rose. He got himself in this awful, not awful, but he put himself in this situation because he always prioritized his money. And then he compounded that problem with another problem by saying, hey, I have an idea. I know how I can fix this. Here's this, buy this bottle of water for $45. And here we are. And to do that for a player that I don't believe can be the best player on a championship team has always stuck in my craw.
So before we go to Mensa, I agree with you about the 4-year deal versus the 5-year deal. Like, that is the one thing about like not having the foresight, especially when LeBron, Wade, and Bosh are doing the same thing, that I agree with. We just flatly disagree on the misappropriation of like getting to your next team so you could get to the extension. We'll get to that later. And I personally value him higher. I watch a ton of inefficient players be the best player on a championship team. Hi, Kobe Bryant. Hi, Dirk Nowitzki. Throughout the 2000s, I thought there was a Dirk 2010, which Bill Simmons has said this a lot, a Dirk 2011 path for Melo, where you just have the great scorer and you surround him with, really good at one thing, like Tyson Chandler, Jason Terry, Jason Kidd, Shawn Marion, like all those guys. And then they make up for his lack of ability as a result. Mensa, go ahead.
So the reason why I like that argument bothers me, because Melo decided that he wanted to get paid. So, I'm sorry, this is a young black kid from Baltimore who's 22 years old. He's like, yeah, give me all the money, please. And I will not, I don't begrudge him for wanting to get paid every dollar he was worth. And then when they made the trade for him, they were not, the idea that the New York Knicks were this asset barren place because Carmelo Anthony decided he wanted to get traded there, to me is flat out nonsense. Because the team, when he first got there, it was a bad team for sure. But that did not force the New York Knicks to say, hey, Chauncey Billups, Amari Stoudemire, who are we using the amnesty on? Amari, what? I would have used it on Amari because his knees were shot and everybody knew his knees were shot. No, let's cut the guy who's going to be a free agent in the same time that Chris Paul was coming up on free agency. Like, there was that money that we could have given to Chris Paul, who wanted to be in New York. But we forget about that because the New York Knicks played their cards wrong. And they said, let's go get Tyson Chandler, who I love. Tyson Chandler is one of my favorite New York Knicks. He won the Defensive Player of the Year. He was absolutely worth it. But they cut the wrong guy, and they just made wrong decision after wrong decision after wrong decision. We get the 54-win New York Knicks team that's the 2 seed, and we go, oh, you know what? The East is big. Let's go get Andrea Bargnani and trade the pick that turned into Jamal Murray. Like that to me is much worse than Carmelo Anthony coming to a team that still had some chips to play. Yeah, okay, it wasn't he didn't play it perfectly, but the Knicks' incompetence did much more damage to our future success than Carmelo Anthony coming here via trade. Okay, we want to have, and especially for us to have this discussion that, Carmelo Anthony should have, we didn't have to trade for him. He could have come in free agency. Well, when you trade for a guy, you should trade for a guy because everybody knows Donovan Mitchell wants to be in New York. He wants to be in New York. He wants to be in New York. And then he effed around and ended up in Ohio. Okay? Carmelo Anthony didn't F around and end up in New Jersey. He came to New York. He made it very clear. And I think that was him using star leverage. And there's nothing wrong with that. He had a plan B. He said, look, I'm going to get paid now and I'm going to get paid later. He ended up where he wanted to end up. Was it perfect? No, but it does not excuse all of the incompetence that came from this New York Knicks front office after he came here. I don't like that argument that, the trade screwed us. The trade didn't screw us. We gave up forwards. Whatever.
So the only quick clarification, the pick that they took Jamal Murray with was in the Melo trade.
The Melo deal, right.
It was a swap from that shouldn't have mattered. But Phil Jackson decided I'm going to botch the beginning part of my tenure as Knicks president. So a swap that never should have mattered ended up getting utilized, and it's why Jamal Murray got taken. As far as the trade, I obviously in lockstep with you. Like nobody that they traded made an all-star team. Nobody they were able to get Felton back anyway. It was one pick that then got traded 2 more times after Denver acquired it. Yeah. So Shawn, you have a follow-up.
I don't understand how, like, using Knicks' incompetence to justify Carmelo Anthony's foolishness makes no sense. Like, if I study for a test and I fail a test, and then I hire a tutor and the tutor's awful and I fail the class, I can't go say I failed the test because of your incompetence. No, I failed that test because of the decisions I made.
What if the tutor gives you the wrong information? What if the tutor is a history teacher and you're stuttering math?
No. You know what I'm saying.
Your comp you're trying to say is, what if I go to work for like a sporting goods company? They suddenly decide day one, like I'm an expert. Like say, I'm actually using a personal example. Say I go to work in like the golf section and I'll make a golf pro, and then they hire me to be a golf pro. Then it turns out day one, hey, we're getting rid of the golf section. You're going over to firearms. And it's like, I know nothing about guns. If we're last in gun sales for the next 4 years, it's technically my fault that I didn't sell enough guns. But why did you put me in this position to do something I'm not necessarily capable of doing?
You misunderstood the analogy, so I'll say it again.
So go ahead.
I'm in a class in college. I study on my own. I fail the midterm. Now, because I failed the midterm, I am in danger of failing the class. I hire a tutor. The tutor is terrible. I fail the final exam. And then I turn around and go to the tutor and say, I failed because I failed the midterm. This is your fault. And it's like, no. I failed the midterm all by my damn self, which put me in a position to have to hire this tutor who stinks. And when the tutor stinks, I go, well, if you had just tutored me better, it's like, yeah, but the reason you're in this position is because you failed the midterm by your damn self. And let me say this, Mensa, it's like, listen, I understand. Yes, he's a young black man from Baltimore. He want to get his money. You know who's a young black man from the hood who got his money? LeBron James. You know who's a young black man from the hood of Chicago who wanted his money? Dwayne Wade. I'm going to give a shout out to my man, Nick Tufts on Twitter. When you make financial decisions, you get financial results. So the idea that you taking the money is always the right decision. It's the right financial decision, but it isn't always the right decision. That's all.
Hold on. Let me just clarify something really quickly. The idea that I'm assuming in your analogy, Carmelo Anthony is the student who failed the midterm, correct?
Who failed the midterm.
Okay. Okay. But we have
and his
to
boy was
understand-
like, yo, you should come study with us. He's like, nah, I got this myself. And then he failed. I wonder why. Continue.
That's so great. I don't think Carmelo Anthony was a failure, by the way. Like,
I don't think he's a failure.
He went to a bad school, is what he did. Guy went to Liberty.
He actually went to
he went to Liberty. You know, in your analogy, he went to Liberty when everybody else went to Duke. Okay,
XJ, go ahead.
Good Lord.
Yeah, I agree with everything Shawn said besides his analogy is all I wanted to say.
My analogy was amazing.
I get what Shawn's trying to say. Shawn,
everybody with less assists than Jalen Brunson has more. Sorry.
And now we're deflecting. That's how you know
we're deflecting. I just had to. Go ahead. I love my Shawnisms.
I think the point is Carmelo made a strategic error in terms of trying to make all of the money that he could instead of deferring to a point when he could maximize his total earnings. He tried to get as much as he could as soon as he could. And that was a strategic error on his part for his own financial well-being, but also put him in the position that Shawn is describing, where he's essentially like needing to move to a team prior to the offseason in order to capitalize again. So that one mistake kind of compounded upon itself. And then what he did was he kind of trickled down that error onto the Knicks in sort of a way, in a certain way. And I agree. The Knicks made a ton of mistakes as well. They've been a bumbling franchise. Of course, they made a ton of mistakes. That doesn't excuse the Carmelo's contribution to the bumbling franchise that is the Knicks. He sort of fit right in that way. And so I just think there are things that he could have done better. I think it's okay that he wanted to come here and wanted to also get paid and kind of force the Knicks' hand, and they just had to make the trade for him. But at the same time, you're very less likely to win a championship if you do that. If the team that's acquiring you has to give up assets to acquire you, you're very less likely to win a championship. That's just like deductively true. Like if they had those assets, okay, great. Those guys were not superstars. They never went on to like reach whatever we thought their peak potential could be, but they were still assets that had value, and you could have traded them for someone else. There were a lot of things you could have done. They would have added value to the team if you kept them. Those are still assets that you had to lose. I'm not saying that that's why I have an issue with Carmelo or anything like that. I don't think Carmelo was ever good enough to be a number one on the championship team. I think Carmelo was an elite offensive player, but was never an elite. Well, maybe besides one or 2 years, was not really consistently an elite player in the NBA. Elite offensively, not an elite player overall in the NBA due to his defensive deficiencies that we're all aware of. There were motor issues. There were instinctive issues. There were just effort issues that constantly came up that reminds you of one or two Knicks players that you see in these days. And I'm not the kind of person who is giving him credit for wanting to come to the Knicks like that. I don't agree with that. I'm not like, wow, thank you so much, Carmelo, for wanting to come here. Like, he wanted to come here because he wanted to come here. He didn't want to come here out of the goodness of his own heart. He didn't want to come here because, he saw all the Knicks fans and how sad they were. And he said, you know what? I'm going to go cheer those guys up. I'm going to go to that team and make them better. He wanted to come here. He wanted to be here. That was his choice. I'm not like thankful that he wanted to come here. The same way I'm not thankful that Jalen Brunson wanted to come here. Jalen Brunson had a lot of reasons to come here. He was going to get paid more money. He was going to be on a team with his dad, with his dad. And, it's like he had a family here. Like, I'm not thankful for Jalen Brunson to come. I'm thankful that he's here. I'm not thankful to him.
I am grateful for Jalen Brunson.
I'm very thankful.
No, you guys are. Yeah, I'm going to be clear about this because I don't want to
know where XJ is coming from.
I know where he is too. I just want to know for the record.
I want to be clear about this.
Thank you, Jalen.
For the record.
Thank you.
Every day.
I want to be clear for the record.
I talk to God and I'm like, God, thank you for Jalen Brunson wanting to come here and for everything else you've done.
I'm thankful that Jalen Brunson came here. I'm not thankful to Jalen Brunson for wanting to come here.
I am thankful to Jalen Brunson for wanting to come here.
Thank you, Jalen Brunson.
Laugh at the Dallas Mavericks for the rest of my life.
The Mets fans are mad.
By the way, thank you, Steve Cohen, and thank you, Aaron Rodgers. I just want to thank all three of you.
You're hitting on it. Aaron Rodgers doesn't have to win any. Well, okay, I really would like him to win anything. He wanted to come to my football team. Nobody wants to come to my football team. Like,
but there's a reason why
go 7-10, and you'll be fine with it because thank you, Aaron, for wanting to come here.
I'll change. If we go 7-10, something went horribly wrong because I think this team's going to be really good this year. My point is, the Knicks didn't go 7-10. They were 54-win team three years in to Melo's tenure with the Knicks. Like
then they messed it up. That's that bingo. We're letting the Knicks off the hook because Melo wanted to get paid. I think you have listen. The Knicks being stupid weighs heavier on the Knicks' incompetence more than the Melo trade. Because say Carmelo Anthony,
Mensa, we're not comparing.
Say Carmelo. Okay,
these are false equivalences.
I'm not making a false equivalency. I'm saying yes, Carmelo Anthony made a mistake by not taking the shorter deal and coming in free agency because he then robbed the team that he wanted to play for.
And that's our only point.
But what I am saying is that even though he robbed them, they were going to get robbed anyway. They were going to do stupid things. Okay, they would have just had more assets. Do you really believe that the New York Knicks, if they had Danilo Gallinari and Wilson Chandler and Timofey Mozgov and random pick number 27, that would have fixed the New York Knicks? And they'd be like, oh, Melo came here in free agency. Oh, now the Knicks are going to be better. No, there were stupid people running the team at the stupid time, and they made stupid decisions. That's all it is. No, I mean, that's more important. I believe when Jerry Krause said that organizations win championships, that he was very, very right. Because he set the Knicks back with his decision making, and that will always be a part of his legacy. He came via trade, and he took because of that, assets that we could have used. And I remember this so very well because the entire time I'm a 17-year-old, I'm an 18-year-old, and I'm like, the Oklahoma City Thunder are about to trade James Harden, and we need to have assets to go get James Harden. Boom. The next year, James Harden gets traded to the Houston Rockets, to a team for like stupid assets. It didn't make any sense. It would have been nice. It would have been nice to have had Danilo Gallinari and Wilson Chandler to offer to them, because now you're talking about James Harden and Carmelo Anthony with maybe even Tyson Chandler at the time. It would have been very different. Don't get me wrong, but I do not trust the Knicks to think as smart as I was thinking. They were stupid, and that made more, and their stupidity to me had more to do with the Knicks' incompetence during the Melo era than Carmelo Anthony did, because when they had a good team, they didn't know what to do with it. They didn't recognize that they were good because Melo was playing power forward. They said, no, let's go get the worst power forward in the NBA and put him next to Carmelo Anthony. And that ruined all the vibes.
He didn't want to play power forward anymore.
And that's because they're
to leave them. No. Wait. He didn't want to stop playing power forward because the Knicks are stupid. He didn't want to stop playing power forward because he didn't want to stop playing. He didn't want to play power forward.
There was always an issue,
and because now that we've moved away from the asset management portion of the show to the on the court portion of the show, when you have the 54-win team playing a style of basketball that has gotten you arguably your best season ever, what does Carmelo Anthony say? Hey, Mike, I'd like to go back to the bullshit that I did before. Let's do that.
Huh?
Oh, that you didn't know? You didn't know that?
Didn't know. What are you talking about?
What do you mean? What am I talking about?
They went back to the bully.
They went back to the bull. They went back to the bully ball, pounding the post, like the 2013 team played a style of ball. Like, are we saying that the 2013 team and the 2014 play ball the exact same way?
No, they couldn't, because the roster had so much turn. Andrea Bargnani was on the 2014 team.
Okay.
Can anybody guess? Okay, so in 2013, Carmelo Anthony played 78% of his minutes at power forward. That was a huge reason why we were a better team. Carmelo Anthony, this is the myth. He wanted to go back to playing small forward. Yes, Andrea Bargnani got hurt and all that sort of stuff. And then Carmelo Anthony in 2014 had his best season as a New York Knick, playing 62% of the minutes at power forward. He was still playing power forward. The decision to bring Andrea Bargnani's garbage into the fold had much more to do with the New York than Melo playing the 3 or the 4 because it really wasn't that big of a difference. He played 16% less of the minutes at power forward. At power forward. Yeah. So listen, it would not have been an issue if Melo moved back to the 3, if the 4 that the Knicks decided to bring in was a good basketball player. There is a fundamental issue with you when you look at Andrea Bargnani and say, yeah, let's get this guy and give up a first-round pick for it. That means you're hopeless. You are hopelessly dumb. That was a hopelessly dumb decision to the point where James Dolan in that season said, hey, look, listen, I'm stupid. I need help. Somebody come help me. And then the consulting firm came and said, stop trading first round picks. And we haven't done it until the Josh Hart trade because the New York Knicks realized that there was a fundamental issue in the fabric, in the walls that were rotting that had more to do with the failure than Carmelo Anthony wanting to come here. And Carmelo Anthony wanted to be traded and then wanted to play small forward and then not wanting Jeremy Lin. Like, yeah, all of those things were real. And I'm not trying to discount it, but I'm saying that a smart organization would have handled it differently and would have used the assets it had to continue to improve. This team did not do that. And we can't let them go because we want to blame Melo.
But no one's letting them go.
No one's letting them go. That's the thing. Yeah.
No one, neither me nor XJ are absolving the New York Knicks for their foolishness. Like, that's the frustrating part. It's that when we try to assign a level of culpability, the response is, look how dumb the Knicks are. It's like, no.
Exactly.
But that's more important.
I've been hearing about RJ being misused all season and how the Knicks are being mismanaged and not put in the right position and their offense is rat fake and all of these organizational decisions that are taking blame, right? But taking blame away from the players for being put in certain positions. And yet, like, I've had to sit and watch like all the commentary about how Julius, it's not his fault that they lost game 6. It's 2 minutes and 7 seconds of RJ running the offense after we thought he was supposed to have more. After we thought he took the leap in this playoffs, and we decided, listen, the lineup was crazy. Don't get me wrong, Tibbs, what are you doing? But like, this is where I'm trying to balance. Like, yes, Melo does share some blames for his shortcomings, but I also watched him score 39 in game 6 against the Pacers, and only thing people remember is him getting blocked by Roy Hibbert, not like J.R. Smith not shooting well that game, not like the rest of the guys on the team, not named Damon Shumpert not showing up, you know?
And I don't hold that, like, I don't hold those things against him either. I'm just saying that whenever you try to assign, I don't know what percent of blame pie Carmelo Anthony gets.
Blame pie.
I don't know what it is.
20%.
All I'm saying is, but he has a slice. And whenever
20%.
And whenever
I think that's all we're saying. Yeah.
And whenever you bring up a slice, everyone goes, but it's whataboutism. All lives
You're
matter.
Not bringing up a slice.
It's not though.
You're cooking up a pie.
But there's a but all I'm saying is,
hey, the slice is the only thing that gets brought up.
No. Hold on. What?
We're talking about Melo.
Okay,
we're literally talking about Melo here.
Right. And the other day when he retired, the large notion, I read the comments to our videos, the large notion was like, if only he didn't force his way here, the Knicks would have been good. And that's just flat out wrong. That's just not. They were good players.
I'm not saying
we're
that.
Fine.
Then I'm sorry to apply that to you guys. It's just tough when the energy comes at Carmelo for it. And I agree with you. The 4-year deal instead of the 5-year deal, that's the smoke I have for him. I was largely fine with the Melo trade in the moment, especially as I said on the live stream the other day, because of the Dolan of it all, that you couldn't just be like, hey, we're the Thunder for a couple years. We're a young like team rebuilding and we have no idea when we're going to take a leap. No, the Garden's got to be sold out. There's always got to be a show at MSG. So you had to promise him, summer 2010, we're getting all these guys. What'd you get? Amari Stoudemire, which there's an Amari.
Can we talk about
there's an Amari
the dude that brought it back?
Well, I have a complicated feeling.
No, whoa. See, that's the disingenuous BS. The idea that like, Mensa was saying earlier, he was like, Melo was the one that made it cool. I was like, no. It starts with Amari. Now you can say that the Knicks were the only team that.
That's my point. The only team that gave him a 5-year deal. So like that's why I don't have as much like.
But there are certain. Listen. There are plenty of players better than Amari and worse than Amari, who would never take our money, right? So like, we need to give credit where credit's due. Because
thank you, Amari, for wanting to come to the Knicks.
Season was fun.
For the only team that would give your knees.
Thank you for wanting to take the most money that was offered to you, Amari.
Yeah.
We really appreciate it. This is my issue with it. It's like, I'm not so grateful. Carmelo did what he wanted to do for himself. All I'm saying is that I don't have this overwhelming gratitude towards Carmelo for doing what he wanted to do. Like, it's not like he took a cut. He took a penalty to himself.
We'll get to the pay cut in a second.
He did what he wanted to do. He wanted to come here. He wanted to get his money. He did both things. He wanted to play the position he wanted to play. He wanted to be in the alpha role that he wanted to be in. And he did all those things. It's cool. Carmelo's an excellent player.
He was damn good at it.
All-time great offensive player. Was never going to be good enough to win a championship as the number one, unless there were like guys who were like just as good as he was or very close to it. And that's just the reality of the situation. I really like Melo. I never expected to win a championship with him. When they got deep into the playoffs, that was like a surprise. I was like, wow, this is like shocking that we're this good. And I was appreciative of it, but it's not like I was like over the moon because I want to win a championship. I'm sorry that I'm used to that from the other sports that I watch.
But that is like the difference here.
Other sports.
Not other sports, because, well, for me, I saw the New York Knicks be one shot away from being world champions.
Yep.
I saw that. So that's why like the Yankee thing's like cool. It's like, no. Like, I seen my team, like, we make fun of, like, I seen my team win the Eastern Conference twice.
Yeah. Mets were great in the 80s. You're right. The Mets were great in the 80s. Like, there's older Met fans that are like, you have an appreciation for David Wright when I saw Keith and Gary Carter and all these 80s guys. Like,
it's an age
that
thing.
exists too. There is an age thing. That's why, like, I try to judge him by his era. And to his era, he's comps really well with Dirk, comps really well with Dominique, comps really well.
Can we chill with the Melo and Dirk comparison? Please?
Dirk ends up winning a title, so he gets to differentiate himself. But Dirk
was way more of a willing passer than Melo was. Way more.
I think you're misremembering his.
No, I'm not, because Dirk was my favorite player in the league. He was because the funny thing is, in 2014, I was like, 2013, the only way this team is going to win the title is if they follow the Dirk, the Mavs model. But the difference is Dirk was way more of a willing passer than Melo was.
So I went and did the stat head sorting of players that, and I tried to make it fair, like not cherry pick too much. So I did 25 points a game, 18 shots a game, under 50% from the field, under 4 assists per game. So like those seasons with those 4 splits, because that's around Melo's averages for his career, like during his peak. And Dirk has 5 such seasons to Melo's 6. Like those seasons do exist, like where Dirk wasn't as willing a passer as you. Now, he might have had better teammates around him in some seasons, which made his passing numbers be a little more inflated, because he actually had guys when he threw the ball to that would make shots and not Jose Calderon.
Like that thud. Deshaun Stevenson, and you know,
like Jason Terry and Shawn Marion and Jason Kidd and Michael, exactly.
See, this now we're getting to the excuses part of the show, because it's like, oh yeah, these great teammates. I'm like, all right, and then whatever.
Listen, my only point with the Melo
willing passer, and the idea that you're telling me is like, well, look at these numbers. It's like, well, I watch the games. Like,
I watch the games too.
The hockey is like the hockey assist that did like. Whatever.
So Melo never had a hockey assist.
No, but there's also I want to say, like, definitely the numbers wise, Carmelo would be seen as like the higher assist numbers. Like assist percentage wise, Carmelo had better assist percentage seasons. I think what Shawn is reflecting on is more like Melo's like ball stopping tendencies. Like, okay, maybe he'll get the assist, but like, for instance, Rondo a lot of times was like not like was like a selfish passer, you know, like he has to to get the assist. He's going to hold the ball until he can pass to a guy who's got an open shot, or he's just going to hold on to the ball. Like, that's not really like a facilitator, willing passer. Like there's a semantic subtle difference to it, and there's nuance to it. And I think in that view, I don't think Nowitzki really held the ball and stopped it quite as much as Melo did.
If it's a semantics thing, fine. I just, as someone who also watched the games and also appreciated Dirk's career, remember the conversation around him before 2011. Like, this was a guy that was headed toward Carmelo's reputation all time if 2011 doesn't happen, which, like, I think Melo's in like that second tier of all time greats in the top 50, 55 ever.
Which was unfair because Dirk had already made a final. Dirk had already made a finals. Dirk was already MVP. Dirk was the best player in a 6-7 win team. Like the 2011 definitely saved Dirk's career, but we would have looked Dirk unfairly because of it. Whereas I think when it came to so here's the question I have for you and Mensa.
Okay.
And I remember asking this question. Like I was on this email thread when the Melo trade happened, and we had two sides whatever. And I said to my friends at the time, who is the player that is not better than Carmelo Anthony that makes the 20 that you add? You could literally just cherry pick and drop on the 2013 team that makes them a championship contender. Who is he?
So you're adding, not subtracting anybody.
No, you can literally just you're taking off the 15th man and you're adding a player. That's not better than Melo that makes him a championship contender?
That's not.
About it. I should have asked you this 24 hours in advance. So
I would have loved more than now.
But the thing is, I've thought about this question for 10 years, and the best answer that my friends came up with at the time was Rajon Rondo.
I was about to say Rondo. Actually, a point guard would have been great.
I was going to say Lowry.
A point guard. That's my point. The best point guard he played with was last year of his prime, Raymond Felton, Jeremy Lin for 3 weeks, and Derrick Rose for a season.
So Melo and Kyle Lowry are championship contenders if they were 1 and 2.
The tough part about this whole conversation is that the Heat exist. So I'm not even saying championship contenders. Would I have liked to see that team, that 54-win team, go up against the Heat in a 7-game series because they beat them 3 out of 4 times during the regular season? Yes, I would have liked to see, especially since the Pacers took them to 7. Maybe the gap was closer than I thought, because I would have picked the Heat in that series. But championship contender with the Heatles existing is such a tough thing to guarantee. I think they were good enough to compete with the Heat if they have another guy. Yes.
So we agree that they probably wouldn't have beat the Heat, but it would have been nice to have seen it happen, right?
I would like to see that series play out. Yeah. Yes.
And guess what? While the Knicks may have botched the Carmelo Anthony era with or without the assets they gave for him, I would have liked to have seen it happen. And I never did, because Carmelo Anthony tried to fool everybody and tell people that he was going to go to New Jersey. If you don't trade for me, or I'm going to go to New Jersey. And then even after Mikhail Prokhorov is like, listen, this dude ain't serious. He's used us for leverage. Let's get out of the deal. It's like, yo, he only wants to go one place.
Right.
And to give you and Mensa credit, the fact that deal was made on the Monday before the trade deadline and not Thursday was James Dolan. Donnie Walsh is like, yo, they don't have no leverage. Just wait till Thursday. They'll cave. Just wait till Thursday. And James Dolan came in and did James Dolan thing. So that I agree with. But I would have liked to have seen it happen, because the irony is they actually built a really good team around him in 2013. The same people that you think are the fucking idiots who fucked everything up built a 54-win team. The problem they couldn't is because not really the organization. There was one man in the organization that kept doing the things that he always did. That's all.
Wait, what? So the one man that kept doing things he always did is who?
James.
Oh, okay, it's Dolan. I was making sure
the chairman of the Madison Square Garden Company.
The Darren Williams trade was made the next day, so clearly the Nets were interested in a guy, and Denver had no incentive to keep Melo. And you already mentioned the lockout of it all. It's why I have so much less smoke for the actual trade happening than I do. I hear you out on the not doing what LeBron said to do, because then he lines up and is a free agent in 2010. It's a different conversation. When the actual trade happened, it was Billy Hunter, the president of the Players Union, is saying there's not going to be a season next year and that this lockout is going to be extensive. The idea that he was just going to walk in free agency to the Knicks, nobody knew what And this is where revisionist history and people like us that were old enough to remember it are important to be like, yeah, I remember watching Dirk beat the Heat in 2011 and the tenor of the post game being like, well, we don't know when we're going to see another basketball game. So I hope you enjoyed this finals for what it was. That's me at least. And look, you know what, Mensa, I think you'll agree. You know what? Fair point, Shawn. Like, you would have liked to see it play out if they had it. I accept it. I think the trade I'm actually frustrated with is the Bargnani trade than that other one, because I do think that there was a good enough team that could have competed, and there was plenty of assets to get another guy even without the trade. I don't think they got robbed the way some people do, but process is what matters. If that's your point, fair enough.
And honestly, all the power forward thing, that doesn't really bother me as much.
Because they had Amari. Like, that's the other part of this. If he went to a team that had a great power forward and was like starting the All-Star game and then like slowly diminished, as a lot of people thought he was, as the career went along, which I'd like to him would have been the right move.
Yeah. I'm not going to say that the 37 win team the next year was all his fault. But I was just like, well, the last thing I'll get, okay, I've been hogging this thing. Does anyone else have anything to say? I have one more thing I want to throw out there.
Floor is yours, my friend.
Yeah, floor is yours.
Okay. I think I'm checking my notes here. Where is this?
Oh, that's the thing. If that's the thing you're gonna say.
No. Yes. Now I remember. So we've gone through the poor decision in 2006 and what happened in 2010 and then 2011 and then the Bargnani's rule, right? So why did Carmelo Anthony choose to re-sign with a team that won 37 games and had limited draft capital and no real young players? Like, that team was like, at the time, and I have it on a blog somewhere, at the time, you want to talk about how you talk about in 2011, we were all like this. Like, I remember at the end of the 2014 season, I was like, why would he stay here? Like, now you have evidence of like, listen, this, you could say that Dolan is Dolan and whatever. Like, why would you stay?
So this is where I need like one good article to be written about the Phil Jackson tenure here, because I don't know what the free agent negotiation was, because Phil gives him the contract, gives him a no trade clause, then spends 4 years feuding with him through the media, and every decision is conflicting. We want to build around Melo. We're trading Tyson Chandler and J.R. Smith and Iman Shumpert the following season. We want to go after it with this young team with Kristaps Porzingis, and we got this young kid, and we're going to try and build this thing slowly through him. We're going to hire Derek Fisher to be your head coach, and then we're trying to build this the right way with guys like Damian Dotson and Lance Thomas and this young team with Porzingis. By the way, Derek Rose, Joakim Noah, and Courtney Lee are going to be our big off-season acquisitions. Like, the back and forth with what Phil actually wanted to do, which I actually do think there was some method to it. It was just so conflicting with, oh, by the way, I'm going to hire Derek Fisher, fire him a season later, hire Jeff Hornacek, and try to force my coaching style from the front office. And like the miscommunications galore. Oh, by the way, Charlie Rosen's going to write an article once a week for something called Fan Rag, which doesn't exist anymore. And it's going to be clear this is coming right from Phil Jackson's mouth. Mensa, you muted yourself. You muted yourself.
All the embarrassment is coming right back.
Yeah.
The Phil Jackson era was peak embarrassment.
Bro, the LOL Knicks that exists now, I was part of the crew being like, yeah, let's laugh at the Knicks. Like, take 10 seconds to laugh at the Knicks for these next 4 years. This is embarrassing.
Listen, man. And it's a shame that all these happened during the rise of social media, which has created a narrative that we're still trying to beat. Mm-hmm. But I will say that, like, I just never understood. I was like, yo, Mel, if you really want to win, you should get the fuck out of here. Like, get out of here. Like, I had somewhere on the internet somewhere, I wrote a thing. I was like, yo, if you are serious about winning, why would you stay here?
Chicago would have been better. Miami would have been better. This is where I actually do share Melo's, the appreciation that Mensa has for Melo. He did choose a second time to stay here because he was like, I want to win it here. Now, I get it. The Knicks give him the most money, but the day of the second decision, when LeBron went back to Cleveland, he was like, if LeBron wants to come to the Knicks, which LOL, if LeBron wants to come here, I'll take $496. This way there's room for both of us. LeBron went back to Cleveland. Bosh went back to Miami. Wade signed for a smaller deal. He's looking around like, okay, I guess like this offseason's set. I'll take the 5-year deal, and so on and so forth.
And because LeBron was like, you could take 4 for 96. Why would I come here?
Right.
So
no, like, the Knicks were not a free agent destination, which goes to the reputation that they have.
So
which,
to me, it's like when you're like, oh, the Knicks were this awful organization. I was like, yes, he had his get out of jail free card in 2014. But you know what he did? He took the money. And again, you want to take the money? That's cool. But with financial decisions come financial results. So now at this point, you want to say everything. You want to give the benefit of the doubt and be like everything from 2011 to 2014. He didn't know that was coming. Cool. Everything after that is like, come on. Like now you know how the sausage is made. Mm-hmm. You are now choosing. You are opting into this. And to me, actually, his point, these are the things that when you try to have these conversations with the Melo hive, it gets like, it's downplayed, it's deflected, it's whataboutism and da-da-da-da and da-da-da-da and what Phil Jackson did is like,
I still look at like, so what did Melo do during 2014 to 2017 that is like granted, he got older. Like, he became a worse player. Don't get me wrong, but this is where I would have trusted a better organization to build around him. He could have went to that other organization. He wanted to stay here. Like, I then blame the here for not then rather than the guy that wanted to stay here. Anyway, Mensa.
If I remember correctly, I think Melo did like some sort of like documentary or something about that free agency decision, and he plainly said that he thought he was going to the Bulls. The Bulls were where he thought it was his next stop, but he had a conversation with Phil, and nobody knew Phil was an idiot at this point.
Yo, I suspected Phil was an idiot, bro. But
did you really?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. You have receipts, 100%. Don't you? I swear.
I'll dig for receipts.
Please.
Hilarious. But I'm sorry. XJ knew.
I swear I knew.
That's the next t-shirt. XJ knew. There you go.
This is before and he had this gravitas to him, and according to Melo, he said Phil kind of convinced him to stay, that they could do it together. And then, like you said, Phil Jackson being a complete weirdo and was probably high on shrooms half the time.
Mm-hmm. Watching the Warriors in the playoffs and saying, I don't think jump shooting is the way to go. Look, how's it going? Watching like teams win with 3-pointers, guys.
He wasn't alone. He wasn't alone thinking that.
Yeah, no, Charles Barkley was an idiot too. Like all these.
I mean, most old school basketball guys like this will never work. But
they had to do math, and then math won.
But the funny thing is, you know why I call BS on that? Because I remember Tom Penn, and I've been trying to find this. Tom Penn, the former Cap guy who was on ESPN for a while, he basically broke it down that summer before, and he was basically like, if Melo wants to go to Chicago, he basically has to take half the money his first year because of the way the Bulls thing was. So he can say all that. It came down to the money.
Miami's the one that thought he could have. That's the actually one. If he just replaced LeBron in Miami, then like that was the path, you know. Yeah. But he wanted to do it in New York. I don't blame him for. That's me. I don't blame him for wanting to do it in a place that he wanted to play.
And I'll say,
especially with a new GM.
And I'll say this, and I think this will be a good segue for Mensa. As I've gotten older, I've had a better appreciation for basketball players who choose life over winning at a certain point in their careers. Like, yes, I'd like to win a championship, my family's here, my kids are here. Like, I don't want to just go to another school, right? Mm-hmm. Which is why when I see people tweet things like, hey, number 30, Sacramento has a really good school district for Kaiden. And I'm like, yo, that's awful. Mm-hmm. That is awful. But, you know, when you make, like, there are always an unintended consequence of the decisions that we make. And I think sometimes those unintended consequences get overlooked for purpose of our argument. I'd now like to throw it to Mensa if he has anything he'd like to share about number 30 in orange and blue and the comparison to number 7.
And then we'll get to XJ to wrap up.
XJ, you cool? You want to go now? Or
no, it's on you, Mensa. Go ahead.
Okay. All right. So recently with the Carmelo Anthony, I think he did an interview with Chris Herring. And he made some comments about, like, essentially, I didn't really look into it as yet, but the feel from it from like Twitter and all that sort of stuff is that he was saying that he can kind of appreciate what Julius Randle is currently going through, which led to the Julius Randle hive, which I don't know why he has one of those anymore, but it led to the Julius Randle hive on Twitter saying really, really foolish things. Like, the same way we felt about Melo, we're going to feel about Julius Randle. And I just want to say to everybody who thinks that Julius Randle should be called in the same breath as Carmelo Anthony, you are all out of your rabbit ass minds. How dare you? How dare you compare Julius Randle, who has not shown up for 2 playoffs, to a man who scored 42 points in Boston with absolutely no body as his teammates? How dare you compare Carmelo Anthony, who scores 39 in a game 6 against Indiana, to a guy in Julius Randle who gets in the way of the last pass of the basket? Oh my goodness. Carmelo Anthony, as a basketball player, we can say what we want. He wasn't a superstar. He wasn't this. He wasn't that. He wasn't going to be. Carmelo Anthony came on the court every night and gave his best. Was he a little bit moody sometimes? Yes. To the extent that he sells his own teammates out, the way Julius Randle has done for 2 playoffs. Now, before the next time you even think to compare Julius Randle to Carmelo Anthony, let that man have a good playoff series first. I don't care about the All-NBAs. I don't care about the All-Star appearances. Not when we're comparing him to Carmelo Anthony. Okay? Julius Randle. How about this? If Carmelo Anthony took Julius Randle's place on this New York Knicks team, we would still be playing basketball.
Oh my God. Yeah.
Do not ever. Shawn. Ever,
you are not getting any argument from me.
Shawn, you want to know the player that's worse than Melo that could have been perfect on the 2013 Knicks to make him a title contender? Jalen Brunson. That's who.
Jalen Brunson at age 15.
Yeah. Let's get back to the stove. Listen, I'm still cooking these foods.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I cannot believe some of you would put your agenda. Like, listen, this is what we do. We all have our agendas. But to put your agenda against your own team's great basketball players is flat out stupid. Julius Randle has a very long way to go before we can compare him to Carmelo Anthony, because you got 82 game players and you got 16 game players. Congratulations, Julius Randle. You are an 82 game basketball player, and that is very important in an Eastern Conference that is as stacked as ours. But you're not Melo. You're not Melo. And anybody who thinks you are Melo needs to be drug tested, because that is an unfair. First, it's unfair to Julius Randle to expect him to be that great in those moments. What we just saw from Jalen Brunson, the way he literally put us on, the way he put that jersey on, and the way he put us on his back and carried the city with a great team around him that failed him. Melo didn't have did not have the same level of teammates that Jalen Brunson currently has. I do believe that this Knicks team and this Knicks front office, the infrastructure around Jalen Brunson is a lot better than the infrastructure Carmelo Anthony had.
I feel like we're just.
I'm sorry. No. It's just.
I said that this rant needed the Ether soundtrack underneath. And Shawn went, fuck Jay-Z. I was like, fuck JR. Yeah.
For those who are watching, I thought that I'm losing it over the Ether.
Yeah, there you go.
I'm really like, this is something I'm really passionate about, because everything that Carmelo Anthony is, the reason why we love Carmelo Anthony is because he was a gamer and he was a baller. And whenever he went up against some of the best basketball players, he showed up as well in the brightest of moments. Julius Randle, so far, is a regular season basketball player. We love Melo for regular season moments, but I respect him for what he did in the playoffs. I don't respect Julius Randle for what he's done in the playoffs. I respect him for other reasons, but we need to keep things in context. So again, for all of you fools who think that we will look back at Julius Randle the way we look back at Carmelo Anthony because of the first 4 seasons that Julius Randle has had in New York, I think it's been 4. Yeah, it's been 4 because he's been here ever since RJ Barrett's been here. You are out of your rabbit ass minds. Every single one of you. Don't compare 30 to 7. Don't do it. Stop.
Fuck Jay-Z.
Yeah, listen, man. Listen, man. Those two ain't shooting the same league, and they don't shoot at the same basket. Like, Carmelo Anthony walked into this league and was a bucket from day one. He made the Nuggets. The Nuggets got the 3rd pick for a reason, and they were a playoff team after year 1. Let's not do that. Settle down. To be fair, if you take 26-year-old Carmelo Anthony and replace in the place of
my goodness,
we would still be playing basketball.
And this is where the transition to XJ to wrap up. Like, the comp for Melo might be Jalen Brunson from a different position, from a different what they do. Brunson's obviously more efficient in the era of efficiency, but guy that is elite on offense and unfortunately has some defensive deficiencies that the rest of the roster is going to have to make up for. So, XJ, I'll let you close this out with what you got to say.
Yeah, I mean, it's the perfect transition because that's exactly what I was going to say. I mean, I think that is the comp. Like, the comp is not Randle. The comp is Brunson. A guy who can literally carry a team offensively, unstoppable in terms of his one-on-one abilities, his ability to score the basketball. Obviously, Brunson's a little better passer, but their defensive deficiencies are really what's holding them back from being like that all NBA level player. I know, I think Carmelo to me was like almost always sub all NBA, besides outside of a couple seasons, his best seasons. And I think that's kind of what we're seeing as like the ceiling for Brunson, unless he can get a lot better defensively. But to me, that's the comp. And I would go with Brunson because of intangibles, of leadership. We see Brunson able to kind of elevate a team, to have that aura around him, to have that sense, possess those qualities that you can't really put your finger on, but somehow you feel confident when he's in the game. Like, we have a chance because Brunson's not going to quit. He's not going to let us lose. I didn't feel that way with Carmelo. Benji put out a great tweet saying that Carmelo's teams through his prime were always in the top 10 in offensive rating, basically, and oftentimes in the top 3. So that Carmelo was an elite offensive player and a powerhouse on offense and could absolutely carry an offense on almost any team that he'd be a part of. But on the defensive end, that was not the case. We see a lot of ups and downs as far as defensive rating and the defensive abilities of his team, and a lot of that was on him. And to me, like, I think I get a little bummed out about Carmelo because I felt like there was a lot more potential than what we actually saw play out, because we didn't always see the effort defensively. We didn't see the consistent effort night in and night out, the like dedication to that end of the floor. And we see that with a lot of like primary offensive players, because there is an energy conservation that has to happen. You can't just like lay it out on both ends. There's very few guys who can do that for an extended period of time. It's not like, and again, we're not going to blame Carmelo for not being prime LeBron. It's like, hey, go all out on both ends for 16 games in the playoffs. Like, there aren't guys who can really do that. And, I don't think Carmelo's shape always was, allowing him to push himself to that maximum. Go ahead, AC.
It's one season. It's a lockout season because like day one against the Celtics, we all noticed it. Like, oh, you didn't think there was going to be a season, Carmelo Anthony. Okay. And he just kind of played himself in that. The numbers bear that out too, because it's like the one year he averaged 22 in scoring. Then he was posting pictures of himself shirtless in the gym that whole playoffs. And was like, all right, well, hopefully he comes back good next year. And it was his year he finished third in MVP.
Have you guys seen that video where like, I think it's like LeBron and it's either CP or Wade and Melo, like all working out and in a gym and LeBron is like kind of leading them through these like exercises. I don't know if it's like crunches or whatever they were doing. Mm-hmm. They're all like going hard and Melo's kind of like half doing it and kind of like looking at them like y'all really going hard.
Yeah. I didn't see this. It really does not shock me if he did though. So I'll take your word
Melo's
for
like,
it.
damn, y'all really serious out here. I thought we were just hanging out. So that is not to condemn his. I'm sure obviously to have that level of skill offensively, his work ethic must be insane, but I think his work ethic was like as to refine and craft and hone his skill as an offensive player. I don't know that he put that much effort into like his lateral movement defensively and defensive drills that you see guys do and his conditioning to that extent. So, and that again, it's not to condemn him. I just feel like there was meat on the bone left for Melo. I think he could have probably been a more impactful player. I'm not going to say he could have been like a better player, but I think he could have been a more impactful player with effort and kind of a diversity of what he brought to the table. But overall, obviously, one of the great offensive players of his generation. So nothing I could take away from him.
So what if I said the better comp for him is Paul Pierce? Paul Pierce was never like a great defender. And it was only when Ray Allen and Kevin Garnett got around him that they were able to like actually build a title contender. Is that a better comp for him?
Fuck Paul Pierce.
I agree. Fuck Paul Pierce. Is that a better comp for him?
It might be, but was Pierce wasn't the best player on those championship teams or that.
I agree, but like one finals MVP doesn't mean you're the best player. I agree with you.
No.
So like, but is that a better comp for him? What?
I love the clarification there. Not those championship teams.
I had to clarify
on those championship teams. Yes, on those championship teams. Look, to your point about the leadership stuff, like every teammate swears by him. I'm not going to say he was a great leader. I was not in the locker room. I just like every teammate swears by him. It's also really throughout history, the pattern has been that it's easier to be a leader from the point guard position or the center position because either you're the guy that runs the offense or you're the tallest person on the team. The exceptions are like Michael Jordan, who is like this dominating force. Kobe Bryant, same thing. I don't think there's a Kevin Durant example where he was like the leader of a team at any point. And then there's like Larry Bird, who again, like I'm
Draymond Green,
but like the leader on that. So you would argue he's like the center though, or even like the point center at a certain point. Point is like he anchors something. Like Kevin Garnett ends up being like their power forward, but he anchored something. Melo was doing it from like he was the lead singer, not necessarily the manager of the band, And I think that's why I've always been like, well, I can't get mad at him for like the drummer not being that good or the bass player not being that good or, the other pieces not fitting well together, even if he did miss some high notes sometimes. I think we do agree more than we disagree on Melo. I just don't, the pies might be a little smaller than like you guys might have more of a blame pie. Melo, again, Mensa and I might actually, it goes back to where we started. Like we appreciate good players that have played for us because we're not used to good players playing for us. Meanwhile, the other side has seen Derek Jeter and Mariano Rivera and Aaron Judge and all-time greats play for their team.
Don't worry, Andrew. We're going to see an all-time great this season. Go Jets, baby.
Okay, you're going to the Jets. I was going to say, if you're going down the Ohtani rabbit hole, I'm not there with you yet, but I'd like to see it. Mensa, we're not starting this.
We're not going. No. I'm not going.
Wasted my Saturday night arguing with XJ. Okay, I'm not.
We're not going.
Yeah, we're not going to go down that rabbit hole, especially when you overpay for Ohtani, which is going to be a ridiculous contract. But yeah, we'll go.
Not doing it.
Not going down.
Not going down that.
What is the salary cap?
What exactly? Like, it's just money at a certain point. But whatever. Anyway, did we do the conversation justice?
I think so.
There are some things.
Totally.
There are some things I will get into on Casual Friday After Dark. That will never see the light of air. That will never see air.
Yeah, like that's that.
I have some thoughts, but that will I have other thoughts, but this is being promoted on Twitter.com where context and nuance is already at all-time low, and I do not I'm gonna get fried for this episode, and I don't care because
I think there are more people that agree with you than disagree with you.
I don't think so, Shawn.
There's a lot of Yankee fans out there, bro. I'm telling you.
People are gonna fry me. Whatever, that's fine. I don't care. But listen, I can say all those things about Carmelo Anthony because Carmelo Anthony is responsible for the greatest sporting moment of my life. See, he's right there right there. That's him at the bottom.
For those listening to the podcast,
I'm holding up a framed copy of the Syracuse Post-Standard from April 8th, 2003. It says, "Champs, we won a national title." So I can be as critical as I want about Carmelo Anthony because I love Carmelo Anthony because he gave me this. And the only thing that will ever top this is when it doesn't say Post Standard, but it says New York Times, and the orange jersey is a blue jersey with a New York logo on it. That's the only thing that top it. But Carmelo Anthony, peace to you, number 15 and number 7. You're a Hall of Famer. You're walking into the Hall of Fame. Number 30 isn't going to, which is fine. Also, we respect you. I have as you as a basketball player, like the your performance on the court is let's be real. Like it's gonna be a long time before we see another Carmelo Anthony, if ever.
Thank you, everybody, for listening to another episode of Knicks Film School Casual Friday with your favorite casual podcasters. I am Mensa, that is XJ, and we also have Shawn with the W here, and of course, GMAC, Andrew Claudio. But before we get out of here, we just want to give a very special thank you to one Jessica Elsner, who runs the Knicks Film School Discord. We shouted out literally everybody last week, but because personally, I'm not really in the Discord. I guess it must have slipped my mind, but even so, it was a terrible mishap on our part. And we just wanted to give Jess her own moment because she's every bit a part of the Knicks Film School family and a big part of what we do here. And of course, we just wanted to, spin the block in a positive manner and say, thank you, Jessica. We appreciate you as well.
Thanks, Jess. We really appreciate you, of course.
Yes. Thank you, Jess. We appreciate you, especially not only moderating Discord, but moderating the post-game chats, which can get a little spicy. And by a little spicy, I mean they get downright disgusting at times. I'm not going to say no days. So, again, terrible error on our part. We appreciate you, and thank you for all you've done for us this season.
Now sign off on the podcast.
Shawn, please sign off.
Mensa was going to do it.
Shawn, you better.
Okay. 3, 2.
Yo, give me a second.
No, we're leaving all this in. We're leaving all this in. You know what?
Leave it all in.
Thank you, everybody, for tuning in for another edition of Casual Friday. We do this every week, usually every Thursday, which leads to an every Friday. My thanks to Shawn, XJ, and Mensa, as always, because I didn't get to thank them last week because I wasn't here last week. You guys are the rookies of the year. You've been outstanding, and just on a professional note and on a personal note, I have enjoyed getting to work and know you throughout the last, 7 months of Knicks basketball. And I'm looking forward to infinity and beyond, creating incredible content with you and strengthening good relationships with you. To those of you listening, if you dig the show, iTunes, 5 stars and a review really helps out the show. If you're watching, subscribe to these beautiful faces so we can get all the content. And I just learned this. I don't know why. I've been on YouTube for 3 years. I didn't know this. Hit the alert button so you're notified notified every time Knicks Film School posts a new thing on the feed. We'll be back next week, potentially with another debate, with somebody else joining the casuals to talk about some off-season conversations. That should be fun. But until then, for Shawn, XJ, Mensa, and me, GMAC, thank you for tuning in. Knicks Nation, let's ride.